News Factor for inviting me with my friend here. I haven't seen him for a long time. When I saw him, he has got a very pronounced dreadlocks. So I didn't recognize him when I saw him now. Thank you, Khabab. I'm not an expert in the African history. My concern in this is the culture policy management, and I have run a small project with the Petrie Museum regarding the hidden histories of the ancient civilization of the Nile Valley. Some of the audience here, I think they have honored us by being to the exit event, which was a culmination of a long, very interesting journey to open the hidden histories of the Sudanese, Nubian, and the ancient Egyptian normal life in the Petrie Museum, which is part of the UCL, the University College London. I think the film, it speaks of a lot of things, and it gives you a hint into the how magnificent our history is, which is still buried in the desert or by design kept away from the gaze of the interested people or from history. Anyway, I don't have a specific area to speak about. I'm just introducing myself, and I will answer any question regarding what you have seen or anything in general.
So don't all jump up at once to ask a question.
Yeah. All right, so we'll have a couple of questions from the audience. People can put their hands up, and Ali will come round with a microphone now.
What inspired you to make the film?
Kind of simple answer to that is, for me, growing up over here, I'm of African and European descent, and going to school in England, watching TV in England, the way the African image and the way the black image generally is taught and shown is very poor, you know. And so looking at the different things that were shown to me growing up had lots of negative influences on me as a young man, trying to find my identity and trying to find my culture. Predominantly a lot of the African American, the negative side of African American culture, not the intellectual side, is what we're just fed constantly. So I was also a product, like many of us are, of the influences around me in society. And I got to a stage in my early 20s where I just began, a hunger grew in me to want to read more and study more. And I began to research a lot of ancient history and look at as much history as I could discover. And I just found a massive tapestry of ancient history that's just never really taught to us. And then that obviously inspired me to begin traveling to Africa and then learning and getting first-hand experience on the ground, and then documenting some of the things that I've discovered to share with other people. Because I think half of the problem now, those of us living in the UK, of being of African descent or being black, however you decide to define yourself, is our image isn't really represented in a positive way. Our history is still very marginalized, and a lot of us don't know it. So if you don't know your story, how do you know what your role today is to play? So really, these questions kind of began to inspire me to go on more journeys, and I've continued to travel. You know, the first film I ever made was on the history of Sierra Leone, and that kind of looks at African, European, and Caribbean history, pre-colonial slavery, and then after colonial rule. And then my most recent film I did was a biography on Kwame Nkrumah that looks at the whole African independence movement and looks at kind of the fight for independence within Africa, and just looks at the early 1900s up to the 1960s and all the movers and shakers in Africa, in America, and in the UK who have been fighting to give us more self-respect and to give us more independence and to represent who we are more. So that's what that film tells. And for me, it's just an ongoing journey, you know. It's we have to take responsibility of where we are now. We have to be the one that teaches our children, and teaches our brothers and sisters our story. We can't look at the world from another people's point of view. We have to understand their point of view, but we most importantly have to look at the world from our point of view. That's probably a bit of a big answer to your question, but that's how I look at it.
All right, we're going to move on to the next question.
Hi, great film. I was wondering how long it took you to put together, and Rashid alluded to it, that a lot of it's still buried. Do you think that's a lack of will or a lack of means that's stopped kind of archaeological expeditions and that sort of work?
So roughly it took us about a year to complete the film. And that's not really including all the research that I did beforehand. That's just talking about the shoot, finding different people who specialize in the history, and then the edit and creating the film. And then your other question was about how much stuff is being buried, and is that because of will or is that because
of means? Yeah.
Of means. I'd say it's a couple of different reasons. I mean, while I was over there, you didn't see him in the film, but I interviewed a Polish archaeologist as well, and he had just dug up this amazing site, this massive temple, and was explaining to me the details around it. And then I said, "Can I see it?" And he said, "No, we've covered it back up." And I said, "Well, how come you've covered it up? You just unveiled it. Why have you covered it back up?" And he said, "Well, we're protecting it. We're protecting it." I thought, well, I don't know. Is that how you protect it, by just leaving it under the sand? I mean, for me, these sites in ancient Sudan, when I went there, I don't know about now, but they weren't a world national heritage site. It was kind of crazy and madness to me. Like, there's stones in England, just a simple stone by itself. It's a national heritage site, right? So there's lots of reasons. I think it being in Black Africa, that's why I said that at the beginning, we travel into Black Africa. I purposely said that because Egypt was Black Africa, but obviously it was invaded by the Persians, the Assyrians, the Romans, the Greeks, and then later the Arabs, right? So Egypt is very, very mixed. Same as in Sudan, is you've got the Arab-African mix, and the African's still there, right? There's nothing wrong with mixing. I'm a product of mixing, right? But it's about then how do we also continue to tell those stories of all of the different time periods. So I think in Sudan, also being an Islamic country, often doesn't necessarily want to talk about certain spiritual concepts before. So that's another reason why I think it's not kind of brought to the forefront more, because it's when you start to study the Nile Valley civilizations and you look at their spirituality, you discover the same teachings that you find in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. You find them going back in the Nile Valley thousands and thousands of years, but with a slightly different explanation. You know, you'll find the same kind of laws, the same kind of beliefs, with a different explanation. So I think that can often make people question religion more, you know? So sometimes people cover it up from a religious point of view. I think the Romans spent a long time trying to cover up ancient Egyptian and Kushite history because it questions certain things around Catholicism, you know? And then you can say on a historical point, because today, obviously from the colonial times, to kind of make out that slavery was a justifiable means, they had to try and make out Africa to look like it had no history. Okay? So in doing that, covering up as much of classical African civilizations helps them support that argument. So these things are slowly coming out and slowly fading away because the world is much smaller today through the internet and through people going out and doing their own investigation. People can discover for themselves. So these things I think are slowly changing, but there's a variety of factors why it's not fully known.
Thank you very much for that explanation.
Sorry, I'll just follow on a question for Rashid as well. So, in light of what's just been said, what do you think about the reasons why maybe the Sudanese history hasn't been pushed forward as much as the Egyptian history? And something I particularly noticed in the Petrie Museum is how much variety we have there, but it's all in a tiny place that you wouldn't necessarily know about unless you were told. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I fully agree with what has been said here regarding the reasons, but there is other underlines of it is a very mixed kettle of fish regarding these reasons why the Sudanese culture is not propagated as it is really deservedly should be. Politics is part of that, definitely. And there is other subtle reasons, because if digging into the ancient history, many of the fundamental established chronologically historical facts would be proven to be wrong. So many of the academic PhDs and master degrees has to be rewritten, and no established sort of academia would really participate in that or affiliate to that. This is from my own observation into that glimpse I had in the Petrie Museum. Well, the other thing is the lack of cultural policy management. And this has actually inspired me to do my master degree in this particular sort of discipline. I did it in cultural policy management, the lack of it in Sudan. We have a mindset that everyone who comes in power would try to abolish, to completely eradicate what is before him or her. We have what is called cancel asar. Cancel asar mayu, cancel asar kada, cancel asar kaza. Cancel means to sweep the remnants of your predecessor. Anyway, we don't have in our establishment what is called institutional memory. We don't build things in an institutional memory format to pick where the other stopped. And this is a very fundamental and structural lack in our governance in Sudan, and that is why things are being half-cooked or not being done at all, or left to others to do. And there is no point of view except from a viewpoint. So our viewpoint is not being applied to formulate a point of view. Others are formulating that for us. So this is a very deep catastrophe, actually, and it is eradicating our culture from within. It's really hollowing it, and at one point it will collapse because nothing is holding it from within. So what my friend here has done, and some other sort of pioneers, to open or to hammer onto this brick wall is very important. And for you, young Sudanese, this is the task in front of you. My generation and the ones before took things for granted. Took things for granted. Now you see the result of that. Sorry to leave you to clear our mess, but it is your destiny, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we've got time for a couple of two more questions, so we'll start here.
Thank you. The film is very interesting, and for myself, I think I have studied history for Sudan and Egypt history for some years, but some words in this film intrigue me, like, I don't know about their origin, like Kemet. I never heard of this word Kemet. And there are other words I don't remember. If you can explain what is the source of these names or which books you use also. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'll just start with Kemet. Kemet is, you can see Kemet as a circle with an X in it, and it's a hieroglyph. And in ancient Egypt, obviously they didn't have any vowels, so it was just KMT, and it was the ancient name of what the people of that area called what we call Egypt today. Egypt itself is actually a Greek word that came in when the Greeks colonized that region. They gave it that name. I mean, that information is there to be studied in lots of books. You can find it online, you can find it you'll find out about it in most museums if you ask the right questions. But obviously people push the Greek spin on ancient Egypt, because remember, the Greeks did conquer Egypt before the Romans conquered. So and everybody tries to claim a little bit of the Nile Valley. They want to claim it for themselves because it was such a rich and such a powerful civilization. It was the most, why I call this film this about ancient Africa's golden times, because that whole region was the most powerful region in the world for thousands of years. Right? That's a massive statement. And so that's where you guys come from, right? So it's about, if you guys don't know that history, and you're not talking about that history, who else is going to be talking about it? The Europeans? No. Their time, they want to see their time as the most important. Like Rashid said, yeah, if a ruler comes into power, the first thing he wants to do is, especially if he's come in through corrupt means, if he's maybe he's continuing the knowledge, then fine. But if he's coming by corrupt means, he wants to wipe out all the knowledge before him and create a year zero. And that happened in our world.
Yes, I agree 100% with this explanation of the word Kemet. And yes, Egypt is a Greek name for that part of the world. One other thing people might not notice, many of the names of the kings and the names of the Lokis, the places, are actually Nubians. I'll give you one example. Tutankhamun is actually a Nubian phrase. Tutankhamun, which means that who is what you call it, disguised in the water, somebody who is being covered by the water or shrouded with the water. And these words are still used with these meanings. Lots of that. For example, his mother is Queen T. You find T now is part of many of the Nubian names, Nubian of the places, and he's black as any black we have here in this room, and his mother was black as well. His mother's father is actually a Berber, a Mazigian from Libya, and we're talking about that famous young smart guy Tutankhamun. So a lot of things are really disguised, a lot of things have been overlooked, and we are being actually indoctrinated to accept the perception of the others on us. That means we are double otherness into otherness. So it needs a lot of digging, and again I will say, it is your job, guys.
Okay, well, thank you for that. It's been a very, insightful question and answer discussion. Thanks to the audience for really good questions. Okay, so we'll have our next act up in a minute. Thanks.
Sorry, like I said before, that was just a taster of the film. It's actually a 74-minute film, and it goes through a variety of stages that looks at ancient Sudan's spiritual culture to technology to the transition from kind of self-created civilization to being conquered, and it shows you the line of the different people that came in and conquered and when Kush eventually fell. So I've got some copies behind me, behind you, at the back over there if you're interested. They're usually £12 if you buy them online, but today, special event, it's £10 a DVD. Thanks very much.